welcome everyone to this King's Awards event with Cumbria Local Enterprise Partnership. My name is Paul Foster. I'm the Head of Programmes at Cumbria LEP. And for those of you that don't know the LEP and who we are and what we do, very briefly, we're the Economic Development Agency for the county. So we work with businesses across Cumbria to help them to grow, to help them overcome their challenges. We deliver a range of programmes to help them achieve their aims. And we're also the kind of government devolved agency, if you like. We're a private company, but we get government funding to help run programs and invest in the area to help businesses grow. So that's where we tend to fit. So if you're a business and you've not recently spoken to us, please do get in touch, and we'd be more than happy to have a chat with you around the services which we can offer. So a key part of our role is around supporting businesses, but also celebrating businesses. So I'm sure, as we all were, we were delighted to hear about the successful Cumbrian businesses this year at the King's Awards. And that's what we thought kind of would be a helpful and useful and interesting event to run today, to find out a bit about their background, stories, celebrate their success, and also look at who might want to enter the awards for 2024, because it sounds like it's a long way off, but the entries are now being accepted for the 2024 awards. I'm delighted that we've got one of the King's Award team here today to talk us through how you get involved and how you can put an application in so you can get some of the benefit that Clark, Dora and Fruugo will be telling us about in a moment or two. So welcome everyone. I'd like to just now introduce briefly today's speakers before we go into the presentations formally. So first of all, delighted, Chloe Pulse has joined us from the Department for Business and Trade. They have a relatively small team based down in London, working on the King's Awards, but they are doing a fantastic job in getting around the country and promoting the benefits of getting involved. So welcome, Chloe, and thank you for joining us. I'd also like to introduce David Beebe. David's one of the deputy lieutenants within Cumbria, and he's essentially, it's a crown appointment, the role of deputy lieutenant. And David's role, he'll tell us in a bit more detail himself, but he's here to support the process, and he does a lot of work in working with businesses and communities in Cumbria on behalf of the King in his role. So welcome, David. Thank you again for joining us. And then our two businesses, our two kind of celebrated businesses today. Delighted that we've got Andrew Ashley here. Andrew is Managing Director at Carlisle-based Clark, Dora, who won the King's Awards, the King's Award this year for innovation. So welcome, Andrew. Great to see you. And last but not least, we've got Dominic Allenby from Fruugo, based in Ulverston, and Dominic is the chairman and co-founder at Fruugo. So we're going to be hearing from Dominic as well in due course on their experiences. So that's who we're going to hear from. Hopefully we're going to enjoy a really interesting and inspirational event. So can I now pass over to Chloe from the King's Awards team to talk us through a bit of the background and to understand the process. Chloe, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. Can I just check that everyone can see my slides?
Yes.
So I'm going to just search.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, you can see the slides. Great. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. As Paul said, I'm going to talk you through today a bit about the process of the King's Awards, why you should apply, and which category you may wish to apply for. So you may or may not have heard about the King's Awards before. They are the most prestigious awards for UK businesses, and they are a globally recognised seal of approval. The first Queen's Award was actually announced in 1966, and since then over 7,000 companies have won an award. This year they were actually renamed the King's Awards for Enterprise, and this reflects His Majesty's wish to continue the legacy of Queen Elizabeth in recognising outstanding businesses. The awards do continue in King Charles's name, and we do have a new emblem which reflects that name change as well. It is a royal emblem, which means it comes with particular guidance on how our winners can use it, but a main benefit is that you can use this emblem on all of your products and services, and you can also fly it, as you can see there, the King's Awards flag. So for the King's Awards annual cycle, it is an annual process, so it does happen every year, and we are currently open for applications. So the applications open this year on the 6th of May, the King's Coronation Day, and they do close on the 12th of September. Now, I know this does probably still seems a way away, but please bear in mind that it will come around very, very quickly, and I would urge you to start looking at the application as soon as you can. It is quite a lengthy application. It can take around 20 to 40 hours to complete. So what we suggest is that businesses take a look at it as soon as possible. They register on our application system, and you can dedicate maybe a half an hour every week or every so often to sit down and have a look at it with your team, and that way you can complete it over a period of time. Once the applications close on the 12th of September, we then go into our assessment period, which is undertaken by an independent group of assessors. It's not our own team that do that. We have an independent team of assessors who look at all of the entries, and they provide a shortlist, which then go through due diligence checks in November. So if you are shortlisted, we will then reach out to a number of government departments to complete a number of due diligence checks, just to check that there's nothing that would be embarrassing to the Crown if your business would be awarded, or nothing out of sorts which could affect your application. Once this has happened, we then go to our judging panels in January and February time. These are each chaired by a permanent secretary, who are the heads of government departments. So, for example, our international trade category is chaired by the permanent secretary for the Department for Trade. Each of these judging panels then put through a list to go to our Prime Minister's Advisory Committee, and they advise the Prime Minister on the list of winners. So he will then sign off this list of winners, and that will then be hand delivered to His Majesty the King, who will also personally sign off each of our winners. We then announce our awards on the 6th of May, the King's Coronation Day, and the annual cycle then starts again. So just a little bit about the awards and their background. We have 4 categories. These are innovation, international trade, sustainable development, and promoting opportunity through social mobility. I will talk a little bit more about these in a short while. So benefits of receiving the award include, as I've mentioned, that you can use the trusted King's Award emblem on all of your products and services. Now, this is a globally recognised emblem. Many businesses have told us that having this emblem on their products really has opened doors to new markets. If an overseas business sees the King's Award emblem on your products, they know that you are a trusted UK business. They know that you have had this royal seal of approval. Additionally, you can fly the King's Award flag at your businesses, at your point of business, and you can do this for 5 years as well. Sorry, I should have mentioned that the emblem you can use for 5 years as well, so you remain a winner for the whole 5-year period. Additionally, many of our award recipients tell us that it provides an excellent marketing opportunity and press coverage. So when it is announced, you do have a little bit of notice a couple of weeks beforehand for you to reach out to local press companies and start getting some stories going there in time for the announcement. It provides worldwide recognition as an outstanding British company. It can also increase turnover and international trade, but a huge benefit, which all of our recipients tell us, is it provides a huge boost to the staff morale. This is different to any other business award. It runs across all sectors, it's completely independent, and it's free to apply for. You do win the award on your own merit, and it really does show that you're an outstanding British business. So that really is a huge morale boost to your staff, because it's something that really recognises the outstanding work that they're doing. Not only does it recognise your current staff, it helps to retain them, and it also helps to attract new highly skilled staff as well. So in terms of the initial eligibility criteria. Your business must be based in the UK and file its tax returns with HMRC. You must be a self-contained enterprise that has at least 2 full-time UK employees or part-time equivalents, and you must be able to demonstrate ESG behaviours. There is additional eligibility criteria for each of our categories. This year, we actually had 149 awards. One of them was a double award winner. A big misconception is that these awards are for huge businesses. That really isn't the case. These awards are open to absolutely any size, shape, type of business, and 91% of our recipients this year were SMEs, with 23 of them being micro businesses with less than 10 employees. As you can see from each category, our international trade is the most popular. We do often receive the most winners in this category. Also innovation, sustainable development and promotion opportunity are 2 of our newer categories, which is why we do often have less winners. However, we have, with sustainable development becoming more prominent in many businesses, recently, it really is a highly progressing category, and many businesses this year are interested, which is really brilliant news. The sustainable development category is also very close to King Charles's heart. He actually released a personal video for us, I think in 2019, about the sustainable development category and why he believes it's so important. In terms of celebrating success, it really is a great opportunity for the winners. So in terms of when you do win, you will receive a grant of appointment scroll, which is personally signed by His Majesty the King, and you will receive a trophy as well. And this ceremony takes place at your point of work. So it's a really great day to bring all of your staff together and celebrate together. It's also, as I mentioned, a great press opportunity for you to get some great photos, some great quotes that you can share on your social media with local press companies, or also international press as well. Many businesses have done. You will also, one representative from your business will also be invited to attend a royal reception at Buckingham Palace, which is hosted by His Majesty the King. This actually took place for this year's winners last Tuesday. So if you take a look on our social media pages on Twitter, you can see some really great photos on there of last year's of this year's winners events. We also have lots of great posts on social media. You can see all of our winners here using the emblem on their products, on their images, the flags. It really does just really give that royal seal of approval. In terms of application guidance and top tips, the first thing that you should do is check your eligibility online. It's a quick 10-minute process, and this will allow you to see if you are actually eligible for the awards. Once you've done this, you will be able to download a PDF version of the application. This will allow you to maybe set up a meeting with other members of your business, maybe bring together different teams to have a bit of a workshop, discuss together what you think you'll need, because some questions might come from your marketing team, some from your finance team. It really is about getting all of the information together and creating that narrative throughout. So another tip is to use plain English. Although the assessors are very knowledgeable, for some of your businesses, if they're quite technical or niche, you might quite often fall into using some technical jargon. So it really is important to keep using plain English throughout so that the assessors can really understand your business. As well as this, it's really important to provide evidence, but it's really important to tell the story in your own words. The assessors want to know about your personal journey for your business. What are the key drivers in making your business successful? Why did you start the business? Any challenges that you've overcome? Really is about telling the story and keeping that narrative throughout your application. You should also add collaborators to your account, because this will allow others to work on it together. And also, if you're ever absent, someone can pick it up on your behalf. As I mentioned, it's really important to allow sufficient time. This will mean that you can plan it properly and you won't be rushing when it comes to the deadline day. It is human nature that we get hundreds of calls on deadline day. Unfortunately, we can't ever provide an extension, which is why we try to encourage you to start your application as soon as you can. Lastly, ask for help. Our team are here to answer any questions that you have, and many lieutenancies, I know the Cumbria lieutenancy are very happy to speak with you about your application or even put you in touch with a local winner who can act as a mentor. In terms of the application guidance for innovation, we want to hear about why your innovation is unique. So it must have been it can be a product or service and must have been on the market for 2 years. It's really important to know what issues your innovation has solved, what challenges may be overcome, and if it's been adapted by others in your sector. I won't run through all of these points now, but we can definitely share with you the slides afterwards so you can have a look at them in more detail. For the international trade category, we want to know why you are exceeding in your export strategy and why penetration to a particular market is such an achievement. Perhaps you're the fastest growing UK exporter in your market, or perhaps you perform a lot better than your competitors. For the eligibility for this category, your business must have had at least £100,000 in overseas sales in the first year of your entry, and then demonstrate steep year-on-year growth. So when I say your first year of your entry, we ask you to submit either 3 years financial figures for steep growth or 6 years for substantial growth. So for example, if your first year of entry is 2019, you would then use you would need at least £100,000 in 2019, and then 2020 and 2021 you would need to show that increase. Also, you can't show any dips in your financials if you're applying for this category, and you would need to explain those if they have happened. The next category is promoting opportunity through social mobility. Now, this category recognises businesses who have a social mobility programme in place to support their staff. So it's been refocused this year to ensure that organisations are not recognised if it is their core activity, but if they are perhaps doing something else and have a social mobility strategy in place. So it recognises businesses and organisations that are providing high quality social mobility initiatives and programmes that reach out to support people from disadvantaged backgrounds. They're recognising potential, they're developing skills, and they're improving future prospects for their staff or their community. In this application, we're looking for the story of what motivated your organisation to have this programme or to put this programme in place. They want to see how it's benefited your organisation, the community, your staff, and if it's perhaps improved the employability of the people in your workforce. Lastly, we have the sustainable development category. So for this category, we were previously asking to see the 3 R's, so reduce, reuse and recycle. We now have actually moved away from this, and we now strongly encourage businesses to look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to see how you can really embed sustainable development at the heart of your business. So in this application, we'd be asking you to tell us of any specific successes, new products, processes, that you have put in place. It could be within your organisation or maybe your supply chain or your community. If you are applying for this category, it's really important that the assessors see how sustainability feeds through your whole company. So they want to see how maybe your senior decision makers are really leading the way in sustainability, and how they've overcome specific challenges in your sector. Whilst the UN Sustainable Development Goals are sort of a guide for this application, we do not expect your business to align with every single one of those. So just in terms of how to apply, as I mentioned, it's open to almost all UK businesses, including non-profit. The application process is completely free and must be made online. You can apply for more than one category if you wish to do so, and the applications are currently open and will close at 1 p.m. on the 12th of September. We are quite a small, friendly team of 5 based in the Department of Business and Trade. We're always very happy to speak to you if you have any questions about the process or about your application. We have a helpline there and an email address if you do want to get in touch. And we do also have lots of interesting winners and dates to keep you aware of on our social media pages there. So I'll just share those after as well. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Chloe, for sharing that. And yeah, a really comprehensive overview of both the benefits and the process in terms of getting involved. So hopefully that's whetted the appetite of a few of our attendees today. And I should say, as well as businesses themselves, we've got some business advisors on the call who are working with businesses throughout Cumbria, and are clearly obviously wanting to brush up their knowledge of the process and of the opportunities so that they can help us all spread the word. Because I think, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're all keen to see Cumbrian businesses get the accolades they deserve. So thank you, Chloe. That was a great overview.
We do actually have a toolkit as well. So if anyone on the call wants us to provide you with the toolkit that you can share with local businesses, do let me know and I'll be happy to share that as well.
That's great. Thank you, Chloe. David Beebe, would you like to add anything to that? As I mentioned in my introduction, David is one of our deputy lieutenants within Cumbria, and he's got a role to support the team down in London at a local level. So, David, anything to add in terms of what Chloe has said? You're on mute, David. Sorry.
I've done the usual Teams trick. So, yeah, no, thank you very much, Chloe. And I think actually I would send out the slides through Paul and or Ebony and also the toolkit, if that's okay. There's no harm in people having it, so
yeah,
why
of course.
not do that? Chloe talked about, you know, that it's 20 to 40 hours of work to do it or whatever, but she also said, and perhaps focused on that these are the most prestigious awards you can win. So like anything in life, you have to put effort in to get reward out, and that's perfectly fine and reasonable. We're all in business. So we have a small subcommittee of the lieutenancy in Cumbria of deputy lieutenants who are here to support and encourage Cumbrian businesses to apply for awards. We're happy if you need some help for one of us to sit down with you and have a look at it. I would say that the first thing, the first step, if you are considering this, you know, is to have a look at that eligibility questionnaire that Chloe talked about, and also to phone the office, because they are really you know, there to help, and you know, they want businesses to be successful. We, of course, being Cumbrian, are particularly keen that Cumbria gets more than its fair share of the awards, and I think this year we got 4 awards. I think, for example, the whole of the North East got 1, so it's worth the effort. But I'll let Andrew and Dominic talk more about the benefits of that. As I say, some of these awards really are, you know, the best awards you can get. Certainly, I think exports, international trade is the biggest award. In some ways, it's the most obvious in terms of eligibility as well, because it's straightforward maths. You know, are you eligible? Have you grown your sales to that extent? But also, you will probably be aware that the King and the Queen before him are extremely well regarded around the world. So somebody putting on their business card King's Award, you know, you will get doors open that may not have been opened otherwise. Keep saying that's the second time we said doors open. Sorry, Andrew, because you must get that all the time. It really
no, never, David. No one ever says it to me.
Okay, I can't think why. So yeah, so we're here to help if we can. The office is here to help. We are not involved in the assessment. Let me be clear about that. The assessment team is entirely independent of the lieutenancy and of the Chloe and the team down in London. I sat through a session where all the lead assessors of each of the 4 categories talked through the process and what they're looking for. And you know, they are quite rigorous. Probably, I don't want to put you off, but probably only about 20–25% of the applications get through the assessment process. But if you get through the assessment process, you've got a very good chance of getting an award. And that's down to how well you have prepared and how well you have addressed the guidance that you've been given and told the story with the detail that's required. But it is about telling your story. And it's not like tender processes where you have to repeat the same stuff in every section. You only have to say it once because it's one assessor reads the whole thing and then another assessor validates that that's been properly done. So it is a rigorous process, but it's not, it's not desperately demanding, and it's worth it if you are in a position to qualify. It's really good for the business, and as Chloe said, I think it's good for employees. It's good. It's just always in any business, if your business gets recognition, everybody gets an uplift in the organisation, don't they? Because they're proud to be part of a business that's been recognised. So I think that's all I would say at this stage, and then obviously happy to, with Chloe, to answer questions. And I've obviously missed something. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, by the way, there was that lovely award. Did you see the glass on bowl on that is Cumbrian. It's made in Cumbria. Everyone is uniquely distinct. So if you win one of those awards, there will be you will get a unique award. They're all, because they crackle, they're all different design, effectively slightly modified design. So they are unique to you. And I've missed something because Chloe's put a hand up. Go on, Chloe.
No, you haven't missed anything. It just reminded me to say something. Thank you. I was just going to reiterate what you said about it. It is a rigorous process, but it does show how highly regarded the award is if you get through. But if you are unsuccessful, you do actually receive really comprehensive feedback from our assessors, and many applicants then go on to win the next year. The assessors really do take time to look through your application and look at your business, and even those that are unsuccessful tell us that they're still glad they went through the application process and found it helpful, because it pointed out to them maybe where they did have gaps in their business and where they could maybe make improvements, and then they've gone on to win it in future years. And then the other point, which I also forgot to say, is that there are four in Cumbria, which is brilliant. But there is no upper limit on the amount of awards that we can provide. We would love to give as many as we can, and also every company is awarded on their own merit. You won't be competing against each other. If your business meets the criteria and they feel that you are worthy of an award, then you will win. You won't be compared to other businesses or competing. So yes, sorry, I just wanted to quickly add those 2 points.
Thank you, Chloe. Yeah, I think we've got a quick question from David Hughes before we move on to hear from Andrew at Clark Door. David?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, Chloe and David. Thanks for that explanation. That really got good support as well. Chloe, you just mentioned then, which I think's a really good point, that there doesn't seem to be a limit on the number of awards that's available. So I think that's really important that everybody give the opportunity for that to settle just a little bit. And equally well, Chloe, I'd like to know what the term mentoring means in the context of this, because you did mention that mentoring means different things to different people, but I think that's really important that you share what the level of mentoring really means in this context. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't come from our team, so it does depend on the location, and it depends on the lieutenancy, but businesses that I've spoken with are happy to be on the other end of the phone to support with applications. So I was at an event yesterday in Northamptonshire where a winner from this year has said that he's happy to talk businesses through the application and share his knowledge of what he's done. But yeah, I can't speak for everyone because it depends on how much time winners are prepared to give. But it's more about our current winners, and if they're keen to help, which many of them are. As I said, you're not in competition with each other. Everyone can hopefully help each other. So it just depends really on the level and the amount of time that a winner may have to share with people.
Thank you, Chloe. Yeah, thanks for that. And I think I think for businesses that are potentially interested in applying, do get in touch with us at the LEP, and also with David, if David Beebe's happy to be contacted, and we can help you work kind of your way through it. It could be that there's some resource within Cumbria LEP as well to help people with the application process. So we're happy to look at that. So thanks, David Hughes, for the question, and Chloe for the answers. So can we move on now? Paul,
can I just say something to that, because I think this is a very important part of it. I've talked about, and Chloe has talked about, telling the story. So I'm sure that, you know, in your office there will be people who can help and support or whatever else it is. But what is so important is that what comes across is the story about the business and the story about how you've achieved what you've achieved and why you're applying for this, why you think you're worthy for the award or whatever. And I don't think anybody else can write your story, if you see what I mean. So to do this, please, you know, yes, look for your help from your accountants or Cumbria LEP, but you know, it has to be your story, and you're the only person who can tell that story. I hope you don't mind me saying that, but I just think that's so important.
No,
No,
yeah,
that's-
definitely second that. Definitely.
Yeah, thank you both.
Sorry.
We'll move on. Thanks for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, absolutely. The passion is what's going to get you,
Yeah.
you know, furthest, isn't it? I appreciate that completely. But there'll be certainly some businesses who we don't want anyone to be frightened off by the thoughts of,
Absolutely.
you know, the time commitment. So if there's some support that can be offered there, I think that's always saying that we don't want anyone to be deterred from getting involved. So on that note, let's hear from the first of our recently successful winners. Delighted to welcome Andrew Ashley to talk to us a bit about Clark Door, a bit about their business journey and also their experience with the King's Awards this year. So over to you.
Can I just check you can see my screen with the first slide?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. So thank you for inviting me today. I just want to explain a little bit about Clark Door and the journey we've been on, and that will give a context to sort of what made us decide to apply for the first award that we went for. So just very briefly, we've been manufacturing in Carlisle for more than 50 years. I joined Clark Door 15 years ago, and when I joined, the business had 60 employees, and today there's 150. So we've grown a huge amount from where we were as a business at the beginning. And what we do is we design, manufacture, install, and we service special purpose doors. And when I joined the company, we did virtually zero exports. And I was passionate about growing the business internationally because I could see for lots of strategic reasons it would solve a number of problems for us and give us a wider opportunity for growth. So I pushed very hard for that early in my career here. And I remember approaching what was then UKTI. I think it's been through a few name changes since, but I approached the Passport to Export program, and I found myself some mentors to help me grow the business internationally. And we've been extremely successful with that in terms of it's now a very significant part of the business. And the purpose of me mentioning this is that somebody within Cumbria Chamber was at a dinner, and they said to me, Andrew, have you ever thought about applying for what was then the Queen's Award for International Trade? And I said, you know, when I set out on this journey, that was always one of my ambitions, because the Queen's Award was such a big deal. It's such a difficult thing to win, which I'll get into later, that I was reminded that that was my passion. So I looked at the criteria for applying, and we didn't quite meet it because there was a dip in sales. But I could see the following year we were going to be successful, likely to be successful, with the 3 years of successive growth. So I waited a year and then I applied. And the key criteria of the application, we reviewed it and had a chat to, I spoke to a previous award winner and asked them about their advice on how to apply. And people will talk to you and give you their time and save you 40 hours work. You know, you need to think about when you're putting that 40 hours in, you've got a good chance. I'm sure everybody on the call would want that reassurance from somebody who's familiar. And I would say talk to your local chamber as well as Cumbria LEP to guide you on that when you've got the bullet points of why you think you should apply. So that was kind of my starter for 10, that we probably could have applied for it much earlier. And then somebody reminded me about this award. So this is good. I would say think about it in the key criteria, and then you'll know when you can actually apply. So in terms of the business, we've invested a lot in research and development. We do lots of custom solutions, and we do a lot of engineering here. And the business committed to Cumbria with an even bigger footprint of a factory and an investment in a 25-meter high R&D centre, which is perfect for what we do for selling doors all around the world. We thoroughly test them before they're exported because they need to be perfect when they arrive there. So we have the international trade, and we also have the R&D that we do. So I'm pleased to say that in 2020, we were successful in winning the Queen's Award then for international trade. And it was actually in the middle of COVID that we got the email to say our application had been successful. And you have about 4 weeks roughly where you're not allowed to tell anyone. There's a press embargo. So with it being right smack bang in the middle of COVID, I put it in the drawer and forgot about it. And then remembered 2 days before the award, I better actually write a press release. And I got everyone together and we put all of the marketing together very, very quickly. And we obviously had the announcement, and then I gathered everyone in the factory. And in those days, I couldn't do it in one group. I had to do it in about 25 different small groups because of COVID. But I can remember how much of a boost that gave the workforce under what then was difficult times. It gave them some real assurance that the business was going to be okay. And literally a couple of days after that award, we won our largest export order. So there was a real happy memory for me, and certainly for the workforce on how good that was. Our award was delayed, so I got to go to visit royalty in London 2 years later when things settled down. And also it coincided in the back end of 21 with things opening up a little. So we officially opened our R&D centre. And this is a picture outside of our R&D centre with the Lord Lieutenant presenting myself with the award, which was a lovely occasion. And we turned it into more than just a presentation locally of the award. We officially opened our R&D centre and expansion. We invited the local mayor and our local MP, and we made a big day of it. And then in the afternoon, the most important is we celebrated that with our workforce. We hired a mobile fish and chip van, and we all stood outside and we had fish and chips, and it was really good fun. So some very happy memories for us on that occasion. This is a picture of my dad together with Claire and Brian enjoying the moment as well. Also, I mentioned that I'm invited here today because we won the King's Award this year. So in April this year, we were successful in the King's Award for Innovation. So we've got both the Queen's Award for International Trade and the King's Award for Innovation. I can cast my memory back to both applications. The international trade application process was very long indeed, and we put together lots and lots of answers, and sticking within the word limit is a challenge. Plain English is a challenge, so having people who are not in your business read it is useful. But we were successful in that huge effort, quite frankly, to fill that in. But with the award. And from the international trade perspective, I found it extremely useful to have a strategic review of what actually were we doing proactively to grow internationally. There was some really good strategic questions in there. So although that's a big investment of time, it does make you take a step back from the business and benefit from that hugely. And I imagine there's a lot of people on the call like me, very, very busy, get sucked into lots of day-to-day. So being forced to do this strategic review, I found that extremely useful. And I've actually found some of the things I wrote in there were paused for various reasons like COVID. And I'm actually going back to those things that we plan to do, doing them right now, which is great. In terms of the Innovation Award, it was about, we do loads of innovation, so probably what's going to be A, most useful for the business, and B, a good chance of success. So we launched a brand new product 3.5 years ago, which fit within the criteria, which was a security roller shutter door. And it's a highly technical product. So any layman looking at a door thinks that's just a roller shutter. So it's quite a challenge presenting it in a way to explain why you've got a world-class product. So we got quite sort of innovative in the application process. We put together some tables where we benchmark competition, and we made it pictorial so a layman could really understand factually why the product was so good. But I found the innovation application was really useful because it made you evaluate how good that product was. And I was actually shocked. Wow, we've done really well with that product in its first 2 years. Really surprised how well it had done commercially and the evolution of it and the things that we were doing. And so that was good. But in terms of the benefit to talking to customers, when you're saying that you're a Queen's and the King's Award winner, they ask you about it. And I can remember a story in the Far East where a really nice, very polite chap, he was really, really knowledgeable. He asked us towards the end of this presentation that we gave, did the Queen actually choose Clark Door in particular? And I said, yes, of course, the Queen chose Clark Door. And he said, wow, that's amazing. So it's you get some questions about what the awards are, but as the team were alluding to, nobody, virtually no one in the world, certainly in the Middle and the Far East, doesn't know who our royal family are and have a lot of good thoughts to them. So for us, that's been fantastic, it's moved forwards our marketing. I would sum it up as somebody who doesn't know you is trying to understand how good your products are. If they see that you've got royal approval, it's a real mark of quality. There's probably none better. When you explain how difficult it is to win, I think that makes the award worthwhile. So it absolutely is worth the effort in those terms. And this is just some more about the product, which I won't dwell on too much. It's in lots of different areas already. And so as well as having the award presented to us, you get to visit the palace. I was lucky enough to do that in 2021 for the Queen's Award. So when we won the King's Award this year, I got the management team together when I was allowed to with the press embargo, and I said I'm going to nominate somebody else to go on behalf of the company instead of myself. Who do you think we should consider? So some names were put together, and then we put it in a hat, and we drew out a name, and it was our UK sales manager. And I said, do you actually want to go? And he says, absolutely, I do. And there you can see him on the left in his three-piece suit, very, very proud to be chatting to King Charles. So a lovely motivation for the team and some people in your business that work very hard. It was a great occasion. So I'd be happy to take questions. I could talk forever about this, but if you're thinking about it, my one piece of advice is talk to some of the people on this call about the criteria and whether you meet it before you go ahead and do the application, because you might find that doing it now or in 1 or 2 years is the best time for you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Andrew, for that overview. That's really helpful and great to get an understanding of the business, and congratulations on the achievement. Really fantastic. Just a quick question from me. If anyone else has a question specifically for Andrew, they want to raise their hand and we'll come to it. If not, we can come back under the Q&A. But Andrew, I was looking on your website earlier, and there's a section on there just showing some of the clients that you work with. I mean, real blue chip companies across the globe. So is that something you've had to really work at in terms of targeting specific companies over the last few years?
Well, when I joined the business 15 years ago, frankly, it was a bit of a secret who our clients were. And whenever we invited someone for a job interview, people were shocked about, the little display we had in the reception area about who our customers were. One of the problems we have is we sign so many NDAs. It's unbelievable. We've run out of letters of the alphabet and Greek letters of the alphabet. We have code names for stuff. I think we'll be moving to Latin code names soon, because confidentiality in some of our industries, obviously if you're selling a security door, you can imagine how confidential that is. But equally, we get customers talk to us about projects which are commercially sensitive, and they, we just can't advertise it. So what we've put on our website is what we can talk about, and there's a much bigger story behind that. But certainly in different markets, there is greater interest. I mentioned the Middle East and the Far East in particular. They're particularly interested in this. When you're having a coffee with someone in a different country, you get positive reactions, and it's a nice story, and it's part of the story of who you are, really. But no question, it's helped tremendously.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. I'm not seeing any other hands at the moment, so we will come back during the Q&A session shortly. But before we get to that, I'd love to now move on to introducing Dominic Allenby from Fruugo. So Dominic is the chairman and co-founder of Fruugo, based in Ulverston. And they have won the international trade category this year. So Dominic, congratulations. Can you give us a bit of a background to Fruugo and your journey this year?
Thanks, Paul. Yes, I certainly can do that. And hello, everybody out there. Can I also first say well done, Andrew, as well, for Clark Door succeeding. And, this shows you can never tell what a business is. Not many people will guess what Fruugo is for our name. And when I saw Clark Door, I thought you probably make garage doors and front doors. It turns out you're a high-tech, fantastic business. So well done on that. And so Fruugo is actually a Scandinavian or Finnish name. And I'll quickly explain why that is. We actually started the business, or I started this business in around about the year 2000. And it started in the attic bedroom of a little cottage I have in Cartmel. So it was a technology business, very much 21st century, but it started literally 20 feet away from a 12th century priory. So it was always kind of an interesting contrast, how you can build a modern business and nobody really knows where you've come from, what your background is. So we started growing with the help actually of Business Link Cumbria way back in the day, a marketplace which was bringing UK retailers together into one marketplace platform, technology platform we were building. And then our job was to bring shoppers to that and make a commission on sales. And we grew that successfully through the first decade of this millennium. And eventually we're powering on online shopping for lots of major brands, News International with the Times and the Sun, and Auto Trader were running their online shop and so on. And then in 2010, I received a phone call out of the blue from a Finnish entrepreneur who quickly explained that he had been spending many millions of his own money, along with some of the senior people from Nokia, to build a technology platform that would be a marketplace that would cross country boundaries and currencies and VAT rates and so on. And he'd heard that I knew how to commercialize a business, and they had spent about 30 million euros building theirs, but were finding it very difficult to commercialize, to make any money. So we got together, he flew over, we had lunch together, and as sometimes happens in business, you end up thinking this is just a perfect fit, and our two businesses came together. So Risto Silasmaa and myself then ran the business together for approximately 2 years, mainly from Helsinki operationally, but with staff around in the UK. And what then happened was Risto became chairman of Nokia. And the reason he did was because Nokia had failed to see what was about to happen to the world of telephones, because iPhone was launched by Apple. And Nokia were about to literally be put out of business, having been the world's largest mobile phone manufacturer, Finland's preeminent business, and Risto, personally an investor and co-shareholder with me. So he said that he, as chairman of Nokia, had to focus on that. What should we do with Fruugo? And effectively, I said to him, well, I put half my life into building this marketplace business. If you can't concentrate on it anymore, I'd like to take it on. I'd like to buy the whole thing now. But since you're a billionaire and I'm not even a millionaire, we'd have to do some transaction that allows me to buy this quite cheaply. And so we found a mechanism, and that's, to cut a long story short, that's what we did. And then in 2012, it meant I could bring the whole business with all the UK workings that had gone into it in the early years over to the UK. And then built a series of investors, high net worth individuals from around the UK, lots with retail background. Stuart Rose, who's chairman of Asda now, being one of them. various Rothschilds banks and so on. And so it then puts us on a track to really grow this fantastic technology platform. And over the next decade or so, which has taken us towards this award, we've grown the business from, I was looking back at the figures, in 2012, we as a marketplace generated about 23,000 orders from shoppers, mainly in the UK and a few around Scandinavia. So 23,000 orders in a year. In a typical day now, we'll generate about 25,000 orders from around the world every single day. And so, last year we did 7 million shopper orders, $250 million of transactions, and have become an ever-growing, successful, profitable company. And to one of the points made in the application, you do have to have consistent growth. And it's interesting that Andrew said that there was a year of a dip, and that meant that, in a sense, the clock started at a different position for their application. Fortunately, we've had this continual growth. So what made us decide to do this actually was another old contact from way back in Business Link days, the old managing director of Furness Enterprise, who some of you may have met over the years, Harry Knowles, a really fantastic chap, Harry is. And he said, Dominic, I think it's time, and I think you'd win a King's Award. You need to do this. So I thought, well, he's probably right. And so I'll put somebody else on all the hard work, all the 20 to 40 hours. So my co-founder, Darren, who is actually a chartered accountant, originally, he was the perfect man to do this. And he did spend at least 40 hours, probably quite a lot more, working with Harry and then the various advisors and so on, to make sure that we sort of tailored our application for all the things that you have to do. Plain English, explaining the trajectory of the company and so on, and taking the help and guidance where we could find it. And we put the application in, unsure of how we would get on with that. And ultimately, when we received the news that we had won, or were a winner this year in the international trade category, it's a real red letter day. And to the point about how prestigious this award is, in recent years, Fruugo, as we've consistently grown, have won various awards. Last year we were the UK Tech Growth Company of the Year. We're in the Financial Times fastest growing 1,000 companies across the whole of Europe. We're in the Sunday Times 100 fastest growing companies this year and last year. That was just announced a couple of days ago. But quite honestly, winning the King's Award is the one where you think, not necessarily we've made it, because business still has a long way to go, but we've kind of achieved something that we can, whatever else happens now, we can be proud of that. And so when it came to the invitation to Buckingham Palace, because Darren had done all the hard work, I felt it was only right that Darren was the man that should go. And he then told me that was fantastic because he's an absolute arch royalist, and even more so his mother. So he was hot foot down to Buckingham Palace last week. He positioned himself, maneuvered himself to get to meet the king by speaking to a bodyguard saying, would the king like to talk about horse racing? Because I've got a horse and I've just won something, and he won something the other day at Ascot with his first time. And the bodyguard said, absolutely, let me take you to the king. And so Darren then spent a good couple of minutes having a chat about horses. Finally, the king said to him, actually, we better just quickly talk about your business. What do you do? Darren explained how effectively what we do is we bring money into the UK economy, even if a transaction happens between a retailer in, let's say, Canada and a shopper in, let's say, New Zealand. The transaction happens through Fruugo. All the commission and all the foreign exchange is captured through us. So we're bringing revenues into the UK. Last year, from our £250 million worth of sales, about 65 million stayed within our business. And also generating all the employment from the UK. And the king said, that is, in a word, genius business. To bring business to the UK, but by transacting worldwide, and we get the benefit. He said, long may you succeed. So the whole experience has been, wonderful. There's hard work from Darren, so I'm taking a bit of the glory in this conversation. But I know Darren and myself, we'd be very happy to help any applicants with just some thoughts, guidance, a bit of advice, a bit of common sense thinking. More than happy, because, I found in my years in business that we definitely don't know everything, and we often go and talk to people that do have some more experience, and so it's time to always give back. So more than happy to help where I can. That's kind of the story of Fruugo. We obviously will continue to grow. We hope to win more awards, and very possibly we will continue to look at further awards within this kind of this framework, because not only did we win the International Trade Award, but we could equally have applied for the Innovation Award, because we've built the world's first global single basket technology, and we continue iterating that and improving it. So much as Andrew with his business will be continuing to improve and offer better and better solutions in their industry, we'll continue doing the same. So we may one day go for the Innovation Award as well, and it's just such a great thing, and I'm so glad we did it. I'd recommend that, you know, anybody that has any chance to apply really should. If it's going to be 20, 40, or maybe it's 60, 70 hours of work, it's going to be well worth it if you get that award. So thanks for listening, and again, I'm happy to take questions as well, either now or in the Q&A session that I know Paul is going to host in a little while.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Dominic, for giving us that background and overview of the business, explaining the name. That was a new one for me. So I thought I knew a little bit around the background. Well done. Get the branding in there as well.
Yes.
So as with Andrew, you know, congratulations. It's a fantastic achievement, and great to see great to see a business based in Cumbria do so well. So again, if anyone's got any questions specifically for Dominic, do put your hand up. But I'll start us off on this one, Dominic, if I can. I think I read you've got around 170 staff now, and where are they based?
Yeah, that's right. We have about 170. You're right. They are very, very largely UK based. The customer services side of the business, which we operate on a global basis and therefore with multiple language speakers, we actually operate that mostly from Ulverston and Cumbria. Although we became a kind of largely home working business when COVID struck, we've not brought everybody back in 5 days a week, but the customer service team meet all face to face in Ulverston a couple of times a week. We happen to have built almost like a centre of excellence for technology and programming around Manchester and also in the Midlands, but also some still over in Helsinki. And then we have sales and marketing people in the UK, but also now dotted around the world in countries such as Germany, France, Spain, Turkey, China, in America, and so on. So largely, the core of the business will always be Cumbrian. And in fact, people have said, why, you know, a company that's growing to be this big usually has a head office somewhere like London or Paris or New York or whatever. And I said, no, we're going to be based in a town like Ulverston to prove it can be done, that you can become a worldwide success from this little corner of this little part of this little country. And we're going to show the world it can be done. I'm fiercely, proudly Cumbrian, but very much Ulverstonian, born and bred, and I want to put Ulverston right on the map worldwide if possible.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And a follow-up question, you've touched on it there around, I suppose, the global nature of what you do. And, you know, has there been a language barrier in terms of the development of the business? Have you had to translate things on your website, etc.? How do you approach kind of reaching those different audiences when there's a language barrier there?
Well, that really was one of the genius parts of Risto Salasma's first work, and why he had to put a lot of money into it in Helsinki days, because the platform, what it does is it automatically translates all the product information, all the pricing into different currencies and languages. So somebody sitting in, let's say, Sweden wants to read the products about a pair of football boots, for example. They want to read all about the football boots. They want to read it in Swedish. They want to see the price in Swedish krona. They want to be paying the applicable tax rates. They want the shipping to them in Sweden. And yet the retailer might be in Australia. And so what our technology platform is doing all of that language thing. And that is a key part of the success. But also it's key for getting shoppers, because only if you advertise a product in the local language, let's say a shopper in Belgium or in France is going to want to see things in French. So there's no point us giving product data about an Australian pair of football boots in, let's call it Australian English, Aussie English, because the French shopper is unlikely to want to buy that. So, you know, language and the consequences of that are really important for anybody reaching out internationally. We've done it programmatically, and eventually we'll do more and more artificial intelligence work. But reaching out to the world for international trade, absolutely, you've hit a key point: language, and you can use technology to great effect. And we've had to, and successfully done so, I guess.
Very interesting. Yeah, sounds like you've done it, very successfully. And as you say, it's been integral to the way that the business has developed. So again, well done on that aspect. Let's move into the Q&A section then, if we can. So anyone that wants to raise a question here, please do. I don't think I've seen any additional questions in the Q&A yet, but Jennifer, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, hi. It's a question for Chloe. You mentioned in the international category about it has to be a rise in sales, but there has to be a reason for a dip in sales. Would COVID be that reason?
And so unfortunately, from the previous years, we were allowing applicants to wind back a year because of COVID. But now we are in the 2024 application round. We have said that unfortunately, you can no longer wind back your figures. If you do have a dip, I would recommend starting with your COVID year, and then hopefully from then on you can show the increase. So if you had a dip, that would be the year that you'd start with. And then hopefully from the 2 following years, you can show that that increase.
I think, to be clear,
Thank you.
When they talk about a dip, it means a slowing down, a decline, which is often what happened in COVID. And there's been a lot of discussion about it, but it's not open for debate. If you have a decline in those years, then it's not eligible, so wait.
Yeah, that's the other option. If you feel like you need maybe another year, then perhaps next year it would be better.
Thanks, Chloe. Thanks, David, for clarifying on that point. And yeah, and hopefully, you know, we're getting to the point where that is well behind us, and businesses will be able to have that kind of progressive 2 or 3 years on the books that will enable them to look at the opportunities more favourably.
And it's probably worth making the point, Paul, that where there are numbers involved in the application, like international trade with your sales numbers, your accountants will be asked to verify that those are consistent with your accounts or your records or whatever. So that'll be part of the due diligence process. So don't make up any numbers. You're wasting your time.
Thanks, David. I've got a question for both Andrew and Dominic on their business journey generally. What would you come to Andrew first? What would you say has been the biggest challenges that you've kind of had to overcome to get the business to where it is in the present day?
Gee, what a question. I remember I did a presentation and someone asked me that. And I thought for quite some time. I've got 2 answers to that. One is a short one, which comes from an old mentor. He always used to say, when you point the finger at someone else, you're actually pointing 3 back at yourself, which I like. So what's our biggest limitation? It's me. It's me doing the right things. I'm lucky enough I did an MBA. I managed to take 12 months and do an MBA, and I studied a lot about growth strategy of SMEs. So Dominic's business is very, very different to ours, very successful and brilliant to hear about that. I really enjoyed hearing about it, Dominic. We're in a different industry. So we're effective, although we make products which are highly engineered and high value, we're actually in the construction industry. And the construction industry has a pace all of its own. So we can have an inquiry which can be an order in 3 months, or it can be 10 years. So you can be doing all the right things brilliantly, but in our case, it takes a long lead time for that good work that you've put stuff right with for it to bear fruit. So I think summing up our journey, I joined in the 1 month before the credit crunch of Lehman Brothers. So I didn't know the context of how tough that was for businesses in the construction industry. And I had a bit of a baptism of fire in my first few years, because the construction industry, it was like, right, well, let's spend lots of money on education projects. And then it just totally dried up the pipeline. And we were in that, and we got through that really strongly. And then since then, every single year we've had has been successive growth. And there's what goes through the accounts, which is what an architect might take 2 or 3 years to approve drawings on. And then there's the order book, which is what we've got orders for. So I can have a really good conversation with somebody who's got a dip, and there's a good explanation, because you can actually apply if you explain it really well. So in terms of us, what I would say is it's the industry we're in is a challenge, recognizing that, but taking a step back. So for me, I noticed a pattern. The business did well, and then a little bit quiet, a little bit quiet, because we we had some quite sort of lumpy orders. So by going international, we had way more opportunities to turn the growth strategy into, a mix. So I think COVID's, we are still affected by COVID, by the way. Many companies are, I vividly remember the Far East went quiet very quickly, and North America carried on as normal, and the UK stopped, and then it came. And so these markets switched off and on at different periods. So that's a good example of business resilience. So what I'd say is you are in the industry you are in, you are with the limitations you've got. But in our case, by having a better strategy, we're able to overcome that. You can't change the market, but you can change what you can do. So I guess that does come back to the original answer, 3 fingers pointing at me and no one else. That's my answer.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a good answer. Dominic?
Well, the challenges are multiple for all businesses, I guess. Ourselves no different. Challenges along the way in the 22, 23 years or so of this have been from the early days just sheer determination to keep going when you're very small, and a bill comes in and maybe there isn't quite the cash flow at the right moment to be paying that. And I think back to when we had our first few staff, there were times when Darren and myself would manage to just about pay salaries from our own credit cards and so on we never told the staff this because they might not have felt comfortable that we were out on a limb to that extent. But things like that, and being determined when the chips are really down, and it's never easy in business. But then obviously our business being the nature of it, there's all kinds of technical challenges that we face to innovate and be ahead of the pack, often designing things that nobody's ever even thought of. And operationally, building a business is a challenge. But 2 further thoughts on this. You hear the phrase, all publicity is good publicity, or all PR is good for you. There are actually times when we felt we've needed to resist the urge to take PR or to make something of a story, and 2 or 3 of them have been the kind of what a lot of businesses have seen as kind of headwinds, where their business has struggled, and one of them being COVID, another being Brexit, another being the outbreak of the war in the Ukraine. These have been terrible events in many ways for many businesses, or challenging events. For us, in a way, you could say, fortunately or unfortunately, each of them has actually proved to be a tailwind for our business, because when lockdown happened, everybody had to shop online. Well, that's what we do. When Brexit happened, it changed, the way people shop across the continent, and the benefits of foreign exchange and so on. So that helped us sell more. And bizarrely, even when the Ukraine war started, we found that we suddenly were selling huge amounts of certain types of products that we would never normally sell so much, such as survival kits to countries, further east in Europe, and health and iodine tablets, things you'd never expect to sell. So at that point, we thought, should we make anything of this? Should we get some coverage about it, just to say this is what can happen with e-commerce? But we decided not to, because we felt ultimately there's no way that we should be seen to be in any way kind of gloating almost about benefiting from tough stuff that other people are facing. So resist that urge if necessary. And then finally, I would say that the biggest challenge was resisting the urge to outgrow ourselves. Over the years, as we started to become successful and award-winning particularly, the number of times we've received venture capitalists and private equity firms and high net worth individuals saying, we'd like to consider buying in, and we've had offers and so on. We've always resisted that, because my view has always been, you're in control of something if you're in control of it. When you have external funding, it may be a good partner, but it may turn out to not be a good partner. When you have debt in a company, the day of reckoning comes along where finally that debt is due. So we've never had debt in the company. We've never brought in private equity or venture capitalists. We've done it our own way. It's probably made it go a little bit more slowly than it could have done. But as we sit here today, 100% of the business is owned by a group of private individuals that we've all worked together well. And if a business can get there, that's a strong position to be in, masters of your own destiny. So it's a challenge, but so far we've managed to fend people off that have wanted to invest, and we're glad we did.
Thanks, Dominic. That's really insightful and really interesting to hear your perspective on that. Just to ask for if you can possibly expand on some of that slightly, because the next question was going to be around how you deal with change and uncertainty in terms of the business environment. I mean, perhaps your business in terms of the global aspect is slightly different, but I suppose there are challenges locally, aren't there, around employing people, particularly in Cumbria. We'll see, we see a lot of this, but in terms of uncertainty, how do you try and get around that? Do you have to have a plan B, C, D, and E, or how do you tend to look at what the future holds?
Yeah, well, I guess, again, fortunately, because we're an international business by virtue of, it being a global marketplace, when there's challenges in one country or one territory, there's usually a solution that somebody else is offering. And so, and labour laws are different in different countries. And, you mentioned Cumbria. Cumbria sometimes can be seen to face challenges for employment, but interestingly, we found people wanting to migrate into, is that the right word, into Cumbria, because there's more than just the work hours that you put in. We have had quite a lot of people who've come to join our company and then said, well, actually, I'll move to Cumbria as well, because I came up there for a weekend and wow, I just did not realise that you get on a train in London, 2.5 hours later you're at Oxenholme, and half an hour later you're at Windermere. So and what I've seen and loved. So we make quite a bit of that and say, Cumbria as a land of opportunity, not just the work side of things, but actually the social and the environment. So generally, we find that challenges are kind of offset because there's a benefit somewhere else that we can take by, we're not kind of just facing the local challenges all the time. We can kind of defray some of that elsewhere. So I seem to be making this sound like an easy ride. It's not, but we generally find a way, and we don't let challenges become too daunting or ever defeat us.
No, thank you for that. That's very interesting. And Andrew, from your perspective, in terms of dealing with uncertainty, you mentioned obviously, you work within the construction sector, which has faced real challenges around supply of materials, for example. How have you dealt with uncertainty over the last 2 or 3 years?
I think it comes to the talent of the team we have here. When there's a challenge, we have a company culture, which is let's get the right team on this, brainstorm, and we'll solve this. I mentioned the baptism of fire of the credit crunch with Lehman Brothers when I joined the firm. That was a really good grounding for me to learn very quickly. I had 3 customers who had gone into administration, and 3 of them had our product on their site, which was officially their ownership. So that was fun, but we discovered that there were some defects with those products, and we overcome the problem with that by they weren't operable. So the client needed us in the end. So we overcame that one. With this journey that we've gone on, so we're much, much bigger than we were when I started. My role is very, very different from what it was in the early days. I think Dominic touched on it, the roll in the sleeves up in the early days, pretty much doing everything. I learned a lot about a business that hadn't really exported much to growing it to sort of £1 million level. And on that journey, I got my fingers burnt where we didn't get paid by a customer, and it was extremely difficult to I wrote off the money, but again, keep turning to some of these talented people in the international trade department. And I was at Old Trafford, Manchester United, on a networking event, and I bumped into an international debt collector, and I said, "Oh, I've written off this money," and he says, "Where is it?" And I told him, and he says, "We've got an office there. Give it to me." So I gave it to him, and he got 80% of the money back.
Wow.
Now, I'd written it off, and we got it back. But I learned from that journey. I mean, I never bet the firm on an individual order ever. You always manage the risk and have stage payments, etc. But we learned a huge amount on that journey. As an early exporter, there's many mistakes we've made. I could tell you a long story about what ISPM 15 packaging is. I'm not going to, but the short version is without that stamp, we had 12 containers going to a particular port that we're rejecting all of them, and that was going to cost us £20,000 per container, that error. And so needless to say, we now have a full-time logistics manager who is thoroughly trained and checks all these things, and he's not allowed to cut corners, and he won't let anyone. He's got that right mentality. So I think one of the things is with the growth of the number of staff is we've got some really talented people that we've brought in who de-risk your business at every stage of that growth. So there is uncertainty as you're growing and you're learning, and you will get it wrong, but as long as it's a balanced risk, you can get better and better. I mean, we've got a commercial manager now, and he reviews all of our contracts. And I probably did that for the first 11 years of my career. And I'm an engineer, so I don't have a law degree to check contracts, but I know enough about it so that when he's doing it, I can have a conversation about the key elements. So and so, managing risk and uncertainty is about we've pulled in much better people than I was, frankly, at those roles, and built organically on top of that. And so that's my role is completely different now, and it will probably be completely different in 2-3 years time as well, which is fun because I wouldn't want to do the same thing for 15 years.
Keeps you on your toes, definitely. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. We're into our last 10 minutes now, so I think we've got time for just a couple more questions. So I've got one again just for Andrew and Dominic, and then one for Chloe, David, Andrew and Dominic. So the final one for the two businesses is just what the future holds for you, really. How do you both plan to stay ahead in the businesses that you're in, and what are your plans for the future, or as much as you can tell us anyway? Andrew first.
Okay, yeah.
I was on mute. I was going to let Dominic go then. Okay. So in terms of what we're doing, we've invested a lot of money in R&D. So we've got some pipeline projects coming out. Can't tell you about those. We will do when we launch them. And in terms of international trade, what I wrote in our 2019/20 application, we're now on like stage 3 of the plan. So some exciting things ahead. Like for example, we opened an office in the Middle East 15 months ago, and it's doing phenomenally well. That strategy, that's working really, really well. So that's very exciting for our business, and we've learned a lot from that. So more to come on that front, but balancing risk of investment with the reward.
And Dominic, in terms and Dominic, in terms of yourselves, how are you planning? How do you stay ahead in business? What are your plans for the future?
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll launch more countries for shoppers to shop in, because as I described, each country has to be designated by its currency, its language and so on. So we'll certainly be launching more countries, and particularly we'll be thinking about whole kind of areas of the world where we don't yet have any footprint. One being South America, and there are some buoyant economies there where people are highly engaged with the internet as well. The advent of artificial intelligence, or at least it's not really the advent of artificial intelligence, it's just that people are now becoming aware of it. It's been growing for a long time. Starting to use that more deeply in what we do, to understand customer desires, customer trends, but also how to generate shoppers from around the world. Obviously, we'll have to innovate the platform more and more, to stay right at the forefront. We're actually at the forefront, and yet we're in a world that competes against people like Amazon and Alibaba from the Far East and so on. But on that, I'd say, back to the point about challenges, always just stay confident in our business. We don't need Amazon to fail for Fruugo to succeed, or for anybody else to fail for us to succeed. The world is a huge place. We just have to expand into it, keep innovating. The Middle East is a big area for us. But to a point Andrew has made 2 or 3 times or alluded to, really, ultimately, it's about the team. The big thing that we will work on is building the right team, expanding it, making sure we've got the right people in the key positions. Some of those key roles, we don't even know that we'll need them yet. It's like the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. The business is ever evolving. And finally, the legislation around the world is always advancing and changing, where particularly for e-commerce. And one of the reasons is because of globalizing of shopping, a lot of countries have realized that they're missing out on tax, because a supply of goods are coming in from an external country and they have no way of taxing that. And so we're having to comply with new tax regimes around the world. And so, one of the other things we've had to build and never expected to is built a legal division within the business, looking at international legislation, tax changes and so on. So, many challenges, but that's kind of why we get out of bed in the morning. It's fun and interesting, and we take everything on the chin and just keep on going.
Thank you, Dominic, and we wish you the best of luck with that. It sounds like exciting times ahead for yourselves and for Clark Door as well. So just before we wrap up, just want to give our four speakers the opportunity, maybe 30 seconds each, your best piece of advice on entering the King's Awards. Chloe, you should have a prepared answer for this, so you can go first.
My top tip is start as early as you can. Give yourself plenty of time to plan through the application. As we've mentioned, I know it is lengthy, but it doesn't all have to be done in one go. Have a read through the questions, talk to your team members, bring people together that can help you with the application, and just tell your story. The assessors want to hear why you think you deserve to win, and it really is about, as David mentioned before, being passionate about your own business. You know your business the best. You're best to tell the story of it and why it should win. So that would be my advice, and reach out for help if you need. We're always here if you need any advice.
Thanks, Chloe. David?
Yeah, I think it's worth the effort. I think that's the first thing to say. If we had one in earlier on in my career. Check your eligibility. There is a quick 10-minute questionnaire online to check your eligibility. Check the criteria for the award you're going for. If you don't tick the boxes, don't waste your time. Seriously, just be quite ruthless with yourself on that. And it might be that that's about timing, as we talked about with the sales profile or whatever else it be. It might be that you look at the eligibility and then you say, do you know what, the journey we're on, either with the way we're working with staff or we're growing our business or whatever else, it'll be perfect in 2 years' time. Almost build that into your plan. But if you do meet the criteria, go for it. Talk to the office, I would say, just to check your because they're the most knowledgeable in terms of the eligibility and the criteria, and then sit down and work through it. Seek mentors if you would like them. People. Dominic's kindly volunteered. I'm sure Andrew would help. There are other winners in Cumbria. We'd be more than happy to give you the time for a conversation. And then, as Chloe has said and I've said, do tell the story. Use the help that's available, but the storyboard is yours. It has to be yours.
Thank you, David. Very, very wise words. Dominic, Andrew, finally, just before we close, any kind of quick piece of advice you would offer? Dominic?
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Andrew. I see you handing that one over. I would think that, one of the biggest helps that we received was, as I said right from the outset, Harry Knowles. Really kind of guided us through the process, and Harry had so much experience of applications, processes in general, that he kind of steered us and specifically Darren in that direction. So it's hats off to the person who will guide you, in a sense, a mentor through that particular process, not a mentor for the business, but guiding you through that process. And if you can find something like that, that's absolutely marvelous. And on a slightly more tongue-in-cheek, if you do get to win an award, make sure that you find a bodyguard, because the bodyguard will get you to the king, even if you can't get in front of the king yourself. So find someone that will get the ear of the man, and you'll enjoy the event, according to Darren. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Dominic.
Harry has just retired as a DL, and he was absolutely determined over the last 2 years that your company, whatever help he needed to give you, that your company got what it deserved in terms of the King's Award, and he was just passionate about it.
Yeah, and I know he was thrilled, and honestly, this it should almost be called the Harry Knowles King's Award, because we wouldn't have done it without it. But I feel the same about the High Newton bypass. If anybody of you know that road, again, Harry championed the cause there. He championed it for 10 years, and I would champion it being called the Harry Knowles Way. He's great. You need people like that in your business life, and if you've got one for all your businesses, then work with them very closely.
And we will send Harry a copy of this video for his personal collection after the meeting. So I'm sure he'll be pleased with that. Andrew, final word to you before we wrap up. Anything to add? Any quick top tip?
I think everybody said it. It's check the key criteria. Do you meet it? And go and have a meeting with either someone from BEIS or your local chamber to check that you've got that right before you commit. I think Dominic alluded to it. I think my memory is 7 or 8 days between me and 2 others of time. It's a hell of a time commitment, but just keep thinking about the chance to get to meet Prince Charles, and maybe that will help with the motivation. Good luck to anyone who applies, and thank you, everybody. It's great for Cumbria, and it does set you apart. So well done to you, Dominic, for winning it, and pleasure to meet everyone.
And Andrew, you'll remember at the coronation, whatever it was, gala or whatever, he was introduced by one of the presenters as the man formerly known as Prince King Charles.
Yeah. Oh, did I call him that?
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for correcting me.
We'll wrap up there. Thank you, everyone, for attending and taking part. Massive thanks to Chloe and David and Andrew and Dominic for giving us really kind of useful overview and insight into the businesses as well. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.